Welcome back to a special edition of Out Front. We are live in Ukraine tonight, this country at war for now 16 months. And when, or if, this war ends, what comes next? Well, for a small view of that today, we went back to a town that we visited near the start of the war. This is the village of Andriivka. It was attacked and occupied by Russians. It was the most destroyed village in the entire region of Kyiv, just destroyed by relentless shelling. Today, it looks quite different. There's been a lot of rebuilding, and one of the people who's been doing a lot of it, so much of the cleanup, is Olga. You may remember Olga and Vadim. We were at their house last year. This was the cellar, the root cellar, where they stayed while the Russians were occupying and staying in foxholes in the back. This whole area was covered with pieces of rockets and shells, ordnance, ammunition. This was the house. I remember a year ago walking through it. It was completely destroyed, but now it's leveled. Now, Olga and Vadim are divorced. It's another casualty of this war. And Olga has confirmed that her son, her only child, died fighting for Kyiv. It's something she lives with every single day. She lives here alone, and she says she is committed to staying here. She says 20% of the village is gone and is never going to come back. But she's going to stay here and rebuild. She describes it as doing her own small part to rebuild this country for her lost son. This is where she lives now. She said a local businessman donated about 13 of these structures to people in the town. And this is, they're temporary, but this is, as she said, pretty much going to be her permanent home. As she works, again, she describes in her own small way to rebuild. She grows all of her own food, her fruits and vegetables in the back, growing them right on top of the foxholes where the Russians were living. Here's the garden, now full of fruits, vegetables, bird song. The foxholes here are filled in. But a year ago, of course, they were here with mattresses that the Russians stole from the Ukrainians, makeshift chimneys. The Russians in their foxholes were living a lot better than the Ukrainians were, hiding in their root cellar. So now we're in the big field behind Olga's house. There's still foxholes back here. And this is one of them. You sort of just walk amidst all of this roughage. And this is one of the main Russian foxholes that's still here. You can go inside. We understand this has been cleaned of mines and other things. And I'll just take you inside. And you can see the Russians, they really dug it out in here. You still see the Russian MRE, the meals, what they were using to cook. They had built a makeshift stove here even. And still, as I mentioned, these makeshift chimneys. And this one was pretty sophisticated. Olga says this is one of the nicest foxholes that the Russians built. And I just want to say again, the Russians were living a lot better than the Ukrainians. But this is the evidence up here in Kyiv region, of course, as on the front lines, Ukrainians are camping in the woods, entrenched in these positions, embedded in the woods, fighting even now to try to free their country. As we got ready to leave Olga's house today, she turned to cut some flowers. And she brought them to me, asking me to take them to her son, Ivan's grave nearby. It was meaningful to me to be asked because it mattered to her. And we went, and there we saw Ivan as a boy and then as a soldier. And I laid his mother's beautiful flowers from her garden, and we thought about this one precious lost life.